Hi, so I'm Chris, Sukai, and today I'm going to be talking about what I'm sure you're all aware of already, which is the Chinese one-child policy that's just been taken back recently by the Chinese government to any Chinese family being allowed 2 children per family. So in Britain, this is actually surprisingly relevant for us because we're a very small island that is really quite overcrowded, so we really understand the Chinese problems with overcrowding. The British population is more than 2 times that of Australia, and as you can see, it's a much smaller island. We also have big problems with an ageing population, and that was one of the reasons that the Chinese government gave for repealing this measure. So it's an issue that matters to the British people as well as to the Chinese people. So to the British people, it's quite a shock to hear about something like the one-child policy in the first place. It's not something that the British people are used to, the British government interfering in what we would think of as personal freedoms quite so much. And if the British government were ever to think about doing something like that, I think they would be shouted down because it's just not something that the British people would let happen. So I think they also have trouble accepting the fact that it was happening in China. So that's the general opinion on the one-child policy. I mean, there are some more open-minded and maybe more practical people that might see the one-child policy as a practical answer to a massively expanding population. I think the Chinese government figure was that it stopped 400 million births, and obviously the Chinese people are enough already. I think as well, British people might see it as a question of human rights. If you look in the British papers, in the British press, you'll see human rights mentioned again and again, and I think that's probably not helped by incidents like in 2012 in Shaanxi, the forced abortion that took place, and a couple of other things like that. I think that's some of the perception of the one-child policy. So when it was announced that the one-child policy was repealed, I think most British people were pretty happy about that. I mean, people like Geetle Baston from the University of Oxford, who I read in a newspaper somewhere, said that this is definitely a really positive thing. You know, just millions and millions of people having the choice to start their own families as they want to a certain extent. So in the Western world and the British one, people are aware as well of the imbalance that's causing between men and women. Obviously, possibly causing some men to be frustrated, but at the same time, there are people saying that might be a good thing, empowering women to be able to choose their own men and things like that. So there are 2 sides to it. There's also as I'm sure everyone knows, what people are calling the little emperors sort of syndrome, which is the kids that are having a lot of pressure put on them. All the pressure that would have been put on 2 kids or more is being put on 1 kid, and they're either coming out, according to the British press, coming out spoiled or just really feeling a lot of pressure. So the other advantages that the Western press are seeing, as the Chinese government have said, is that the one-child policy also saves some resources, maybe giving the people that were there a better quality of life, and as the Chinese government has said as well, possibly leading to part of the rise in the economy as well. So on the other hand, the part of the Western opinion is also that maybe it won't actually make that much difference repealing the measure. I mean, the last change that happened with previous singletons being allowed 2 children instead of 1, the government was expecting that to be a difference of 2 million births, and it actually only made a difference of 1 million. And a lot of Chinese people are saying that actually they're not going to have more kids because it's costing them so much. So some of the conclusion of the Western press is probably that it's symbolically seen in the West and in the UK as a really good step that is giving people more freedom in their personal lives. But we're wondering as well how much of a practical difference that'll actually make to the number of children that people choose to have.